Hello, and welcome to the U.S. Forest Service FTEM webinar. On the webinar today, we have myself, Bree Schuler, Caroline Noble, and Kim Ernstrom. We are the technical leads for the FTEM project with the Wildland Fire Management RDNA. We also have on the call the Forest Service Agency lead, Jim Menakis, and for FTEM. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and ask Jim if he would like to give any opening comments before we jump into the FTEM webinar.
Thanks, Bree. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, first of all, I'd like to thank everyone to taking time out of their busy schedule to get this first introduction to the Field Treatment Effectiveness Monitoring Program inside the FTEM application. I think you'll find a lot of new features here that will enable you to hopefully do your reporting more quickly and easily going forward into the future. I can't overemphasize the importance of Field Treatment Effectiveness Monitoring. It's something we use all the time to present to upper level leadership, congressional folks, and those things. So the information in here is valuable. And the time you spend doing this work is really, really important to making us better on the ground and also keeping us program visible and viable going forward. So yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to file away questions through the presentation. Also, we'll be coordinating through your regional leads, your Field Treatment Effectiveness Forest Service regional leads in the future to provide information and support as we go through this process. And I think that's it. Bree, back to you.
Okay, thanks, Jim. So yeah, like Jim said, if you have questions, just a couple housekeeping items. If you have questions, there is a questions box that we have with the webinar, so feel free to type your questions in the box. We've got Caroline and Kim will be watching that, and we'll either respond there, or we are hoping to actually answer questions during the presentation today. So ask questions at any time. And we are going to be recording this presentation for use after today. If folks need to go back and watch it, or you want to distribute it out to the field further, that will be available to you. Everyone is on mute, and therefore, like I said, if you have questions, just go ahead and put them in the box. With that, just a quick kind of overview of what we're going to do today. I'm basically just going to walk you through the components and functionality of FTEM. We'll talk a little bit about roles. We'll talk about the different components of FTEM, and then we'll wrap it up by looking at the FTEM help content and what we have to offer in that regard. We'll follow it up with hopefully 10 minutes for questions, and then we'll get some closing comments from Jim. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So the first thing I want to mention, as you guys have probably, most of you have already noticed, that FTEM has integrated FTEM into its application. So it's a single sign-in. So you sign up for an FTEM account, which I'm showing here. I've logged into my FTEM account, and I now see FTEM on the navigation bar. Just a little side note, I am using our testing environment to demo this for you today. So your navigation bar in FTEM.firenet.gov is blue. This one is green, and that's because I'm using a different environment. And part of that is because I'm actually going to be doing some monitoring while I'm demoing, and I don't want to do that in the live application because that's for you guys to do. So just wanted to point out that difference. But so we built FTEM into FTEM, so it's a single sign-in. You get an FTEM account, and you do have to register for FTEM. So the first time you click on FTEM in the navigation bar, you're going to be asked to request access, and you're going to have to fill out a form that basically asks you what your agency and what your region is. And part of the reason that we're asking that for FTEM is that's going to funnel your request to an FTEM agency administrator. And those agency administrators are going to be able to approve your account. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and jump into FTEM. So because I've already obviously got an account, I go straight to the landing page. So a little bit on roles. So I mentioned the agency administrator, the FTEM agency administrator role. We've got 3 primary roles with FTEM, the agency viewer, the agency editor, and the FTEM agency administrator. I'm going to switch to an account that I logged into. This is my agency viewer account. When you sign up for FTEM with your Forest Service email, you are automatically granted agency viewer access. So many of you have already come in and are agency viewers. Now, when you register, you can click a box that says, hey, I want to be an agency editor. I want to be a Forest Service agency editor. And so you do have to wait for your FTEM agency administrator to approve that role. If you forget to check that box when you register, you can go to your profile in FTEM. So I'm demonstrating that here under my name. I click profile, and I have 3 tabs here. If I go to my FTEM roles, I can see that I'm a Forest Service viewer, and I want that editor access. So this is where I would do that. In this case, I've already requested it, but if it didn't say requested editor here, I would just check this box and request FTEM roles. So I wanted to cover that because I've already gotten a couple questions about that this week. While I'm on the profile page, I want to go ahead and show you that here you can also set some preferences. And right now we are allowing FTM users to set their map extent here. So if you know that you work in a specific area on a specific unit and you want your map to always zoom to that unit when you log in, you can use these drop-down boxes to set that here. And I've got mine set to the Superior National Forest right now. And so you'd set that the default extent, and that's what it would zoom you into every time you log in. So with that, I am going to go ahead and move into the landing page. So when you come into FTEM, you are shown an FTEM landing page. Again, it's sort of like an application within an application. So while the help content and everything is integrated into the larger IFTDIS application, it is in a way siloed. So here we have a couple different options. You can go to FTEM monitoring, which is where I'm going to be spending most of my time with you here today. I will show you FTEM reports and what we have built out for that with that so far. The FTEM account management button will take you to your profile. And in this back to IFTDIS will obviously take you back to the IFTDIS application. Similarly, you have the same options here in the navigation bar. We also have some different resources on the FTEM landing page. You can read some frequently asked questions. We've got links to help specifics in the help content. And we've also got some links to agency guidance and policy here on the landing page. And then, of course, your agency lead contact information. So in this case, Jim Anakis would be your contact. Okay, so let's get to the fun part. So I'm going to jump into FTEM monitoring here. And when I come into the application, we've built this to where the tabular information that you're going to be adding and looking at is dynamic with the map. So when you come in, you're in what we call split screen map view. So you've got map on your left and you've got this tab view on your right. So there's a lot here. I'm going to try to cover all the different pieces. So first, I just want to demonstrate how if you did want to look at the map in full screen, you could click these 2 arrows will either hide the map or expand the map. So if I click on this button, it's going to expand the map. And then if I click back, it's going to give me my tab view again. And then if I hide the map, I'm actually going to see the full tab view, but I'm also going to see this right-hand panel that's going to give me a lot of additional attribute information about the fires, and additionally, once I'm on the treatment list tab, the treatments. And we'll come back to this as I demo. A couple other things that you see right away is that I have a couple options here on the top of the tab. The first option is the wildfire year. So this is based on the start date of the wildfire. For this demo, I am going to switch this to 2017. I'm going to go ahead and do that now and let the system think and get that switched over. I also have an agency drop-down box here. Most of you will not have this. If I go back to my agency viewer account, most of you are going to see this here because you only have access to Forest Service treatment. That's all you are responsible for monitoring. I am currently logged in as an administrator, so I have access to all the different agencies. This is an interagency application. So here we see that I switched to 2017 fires, and my wildfire list did update for that, as well as the map. And so with that, your main thing that you're looking for here is your fire, right? That's the starting point. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit here. Got a couple fires I want to show you. So you can see as I'm moving the map around, my list is dynamic with the map, so it's updating. A couple other things I want to point out is the layers list and the statuses. So that's kind of a big part of this. So right now it's showing that a bunch of wildfires with a status of check for interaction, so the pink ones. That means that when these wildfires came into the system, the system then did an interaction detection to determine if there are any treatments in the area. So here you can see I'm looking at a lot of fires that don't have any interactions detected. And so let's see, I'm actually going to search for one. If I did have fires that had been completed or monitoring had started, then we would see that on the map. They would be color-coded that way. So let's see here. Let's search for North Pelican fire. So here I'm going to go ahead and zoom to this fire to show you what it looks like when the system has actually detected treatment. So here I'm showing that I've got some different information about this fire, the acres, control date, monitoring had not started, and there were 4 interactions detected. When I zoom to it, I can actually see those treatments, and they're in pink. I'm going to zoom into them. Okay. So we can see that a few of the treatments that interacted with the fire actually overlapped. Let's let it update here. Hopefully this is keeping up. And if I click on the treatments, it's actually going to move me to the treatment tab. I'm not ready to do that yet, so I'm going to show you a couple other things. First, I'm going to pause here to see if there are any questions or anything that has come in.
Hey, Bree. So far, one question has come in about account access, saying I'm responsible for entering data for 2 different agencies. Can I get access to both in one account, or do I have to have 2 separate accounts?
Nope, you are definitely able to have access to 2 different agencies. So real quick, I'm going to switch back. So if I you do have to request that. So if you go back to your profile page and add roles, you would just select, you can see all of the agencies are listed here. So if you needed, say, Forest Service and BLM, then you would request your BLM access here by clicking this box. So that is possible. And then when you would log in and use this drop down, you would switch between the 2 agencies. Okay.
Actually, hey Bree, this is Kim. Got a second question too about how some wildfire shape files are missing. So I just flipped a question back to the user there, and it's Michael Kelly was asking that, and so I'm wondering if those are brand new fires that are still haven't been controlled yet. But if you want to talk about that for a second.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and touch on the data. I did want to cover that before I moved on to the treatments tab. So Right now, we are funneling IRWIN, GeoMac, FACTS, and NIFPORS data into the system. So obviously, IRWIN and GeoMac for wildfires, and NIFPORS and FACTS for fuels treatment. We check for new data every night. So every night we're updating the system, and we only bring in wildfires. We have certain criteria which all of this data can come in, right? Part of that is to meet policy. Part of it is to make you all's life easier as you're trying to get this monitoring done efficiently and effectively, like Jim had mentioned at the start. So for wildfires, what we look for first is those fires need to have a contained, controlled, or out date. If one of those fields are populated with a date, we will bring that data in at night. We will bring that point fire in at night. Now, the system's also going to check GeoMac to see if there's a perimeter available for that fire. And if there is, it's also going to bring that in. We do continue to check for GeoMac perimeters, even if the fire point already came in, because we know that sometimes those perimeters don't get uploaded alongside the IRWIN data or the information for the tabular information that goes along with IRWIN. And so if there are a couple scenarios where we will bring in, well, there's actually one scenario where we will bring in a wildfire if it doesn't have a controlled, contained, or out date. And that is if that fire doesn't have any activity associated with it in IRWIN for 45 days, we will bring that fire in. So I can show you that here as we look at the wildfire tab view here, table. You can see that we've got control date, and if you hover over this, it actually says in the hover text, wildfire control out or contained date, because we do look at all of the other dates as well. And so these all have a date populated. So this means that these dates are either the contained, control, or out date. Now, this Hillcrest fire doesn't have a date associated with it, and that's because it met that 45-day rule criteria. So it had been 45 days since anything had happened with that fire in IRWIN, so we went ahead and brought it in. Now, it is going to get a date associated with it that we call the FTEM end date, and I can show you that here. You can see that in the right-hand panel, the FTEM end date. And that helps us to do some quality control and some validation testing as we move through the other treatments you'll see with how we try to validate some of the date fields. But so that's the criteria for the wildfires. So if you don't see a fire in the system that you know is out, you know, those are the things to be looking for. Does it have a controlled, contained, out date? If not, has it been 45 days from the start date? And if it meets all those criteria and you're still not seeing it, then definitely let us know. So with that too, you know, I'll touch just quickly on the FACTS data coming in. So we do bring in the FACTS data every night as well. So if you update your FACTS data today, you'll see it in FTEM tomorrow. So that occurs at night. And that includes new treatments that you're completing, because that's the criteria for the fuels treatments, is they have to have a complete date. That also includes, it will also update if you had a completed treatment and you just updated some of the data for that treatment, that will also come into the system. So that's a quick and dirty on data. So let's see, let's get back to where we were here. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to go ahead and look at this fire in depth. So I'm going to go ahead, I've selected the North Pelican fire. I'm going to go ahead and click the treatments button, and that's going to take me to the treatment tab where I can start doing some monitoring. It's the same if you click this button as if you click the treatments tab up here. Side note, you can add attachments to these fires here. There are a couple of other places along the way that you can add attachments. And this is pretty straightforward. Browse your computer to find your attachments. This can be pictures, this can be Word documents, this can be PDFs, this can be a variety of things that you want to attach to this fire. Okay, So I click treatments, it zooms me into the fire, and I'm going to start to see these treatments populate. And I'm going to zoom into, the map gets a little bit crowded here sometimes. I'm going to zoom in to where the interactions actually occurred. And I can see 4 here. I see 4 in my list. Just a couple different functionalities and ways to kind of pinpoint and really hone in on what you're looking at. If you click the radio buttons next to these treatments, it's going to highlight those treatments. Sometimes when you get a lot of them right next to each other, it's hard to tell really what you're looking at. So here you can see I'm looking at these. This one, the fire burned completely through. This one, there was some partial burning. And this one as well, a little corner here. So a couple things with this. If you determine that you need to add more treatments to this list that you want to monitor, because the whole point of this treatments tab is really to refine this list to the treatments that actually the fire did interact with. So when we do our auto detection at night to pick up these treatments, this is just kind of the first brush at this, right? We're just kind of saying, hey, you might want to check this fire out. We detected there were some treatments that it interacted with, but maybe they didn't really truly interact, and maybe they shouldn't really be part of the North Pelican FTEM monitoring report. In which case, you can select them here, and you can see the remove button becomes available. So if I click remove, if I determine that this one really didn't interact, fire really didn't interact with it, I can click remove. And it's going to ask me, are you sure? And I say, yep, I'm sure. So I remove that treatment. You can see that the treatment was removed from the North Pelican treatment list, but the treatment was not removed from the database. So we've had that question a lot, is if I remove a treatment, does that remove it from the FTM database? And can I add it back in if I need to? And the answer is yes. And the answer is no, it doesn't remove it from the database, but yes, you can add it back in. There's a couple ways you can add treatments back in. You can either use the Add Treatments button, which is going to let you rebuffer that fire. So you can type, I think it's up to 1,500 meters it'll let you buffer. And that's going to pick up every single treatment within 15 meters of this perimeter. You can do less, of course. If you just wanted to do a 1 meter buffer, you could do that. Or you can click directly on the treatment on the map. If I wanted to add this one back in, you can see I get this little dialog that says, hey, this is the treatment you selected, and I say, yep, I want to add that interaction. So you can see then that I add it back in. Let's see, you can also see here we have another opportunity to attach files. So if you wanted to include attachments to individual treatments, you can do that here. These attachments will become available for the North Pelican fire. At the very end of this, you'll see that all of them are combined into one list of attachments. I also want to highlight that if you end up having some of these bigger fires that have a bunch of treatments in them, you might need some help figuring out which is which. We did a lot of filtering of the FACS data to give you the most recently completed treatments on a particular footprint. As you guys know that have used FACS, you can have multiple treatments on the same footprint under the same FACS ID. We did a lot of filtering to filter that out, but there still are instances where you might see that, in which case you can either use the identify tool. A couple ways that you can find some additional attribute information. You can use the identify tool. You can see here I clicked on this treatment, and here I'm getting a bunch of different information that was populated when this treatment was put into FACS. You can also use, as I showed before, you can use the right-hand panel. So if I hover over these treatments, you can see that the information in the right-hand panel is changing. There's a bunch of additional information there. Okay, before I move on to monitoring, I'm going to pause and see if there are any questions.
We've gotten several about the wildfire data sources, Bree, but we've been typing in the answers, and then you covered it verbally, so we can come back to it at the end if there's still questions, but I think going.
Okay. Jim, do you have anything to add here at this point?
No, not at this time, though. I think at the end I might kind of go over some of the Forest Service business rules and a few things like that as well. So, but keep going with the presentation for now.
Perfect, thanks. Okay, so before I move to the monitoring tab, I just want to reiterate that, you know, it really does take local expertise and you all jumping into this to refine this list. That's really your goal here on the treatments tab, is to refine this list to the treatments that actually interacted with the fire. And part of that is because you aren't going to be able to complete the North Pelican FTEM record until all of these are in complete status, meaning that they've all turned green. I can show you we've got additional layers here for the treatments, and so your goal is to refine the list and get these all into complete status so you can complete that fire. So in this case, I am going to go ahead and monitor all of these treatments. I have determined that they've all interacted and I want to report on all of them. So I've selected all of them, and selecting all of them and clicking monitor treatments, again, I can either click the monitor tab directly, or this button is going to carry those treatments over into the monitoring tab, where now I can answer my FTEM monitoring questions. So you can do these as individuals, or you can do batch monitoring. You could select one at a time, and I'm going to click this top one, and I'm going to click enter data. And now I'm going to get the whole assortment of FTEM questions. And for those of you who worked with the legacy FTEM, these are all exactly the same. So if I collapsed this first one, and you can see that we've got all the same information that you can enter. So fuel moisture, conditions, when that interaction occurred, flame lengths inside and outside the treatment, dominant type of fire spread inside and outside of the treatment. So that's all here. But the important thing to note is that there are required questions for this. So the ones with the asterisks, the red asterisks by them, are the required questions that you have to answer for every treatment for those treatments to become complete. Now you can answer you can fill in any of this other information, but these you have to fill in for that treatment to become complete. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to do this in a batch just so we can get through it. But what I wanted to demonstrate that with this specifically is here we had a fire. We did have the geomac fire polygon, and it did intersect with fuel treatment polygons where we had these geospatial intersections. And I just wanted to demonstrate how the system will automatically calculate the acreage of overlap for you in this treatment acres burned by fire. You only get this auto-populated when you monitor them as individuals. When you do batch monitoring, this field, along with the time of interaction, they are locked because you do have to do those as individuals. Now, again, you know, the system does this auto interaction acre detection, but if that's not what it really was, you can change it. So if you know that it was actually only, you know, a half acre, then you can change that. So I just wanted to show that. So I'm going to go ahead and save that one. But I guess I do have to do this for all of them. I'm going to go back, speed this up. So we'll just bring that one over and actually remove these. This is not what you would actually do. I just want to speed this one along. So I'm going to remove these so we can move ahead. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and finish the questions for this one. I'm going to say that the wildfire burned through some acres treated. And like I said, we have validation on a lot of these fields where we could have validation to help the users, you know, enter the correct dates and things like that. And I'm going to say yes to these questions. And when I save and close, you're going to see that this little icon here is going to change, and that treatment should turn green, meaning that the monitoring has been completed. Now you'll notice that the wildfire symbology is still in progress, and that's because I have to complete a final and very important step to completing this monitoring record for this fire. So I go to the Complete tab, and here you can see that there's some different information about the fire. Again, I have the opportunity to add or at least just review the attachments that have been added to this fire. I also want to show you the table summary. You can also access this on the Wildfire tab, but it's basically a table of all of the monitoring information that's been entered so far. So it's got pretty much anything that you've entered in that monitoring tab here in a table. One thing I want to highlight that this also has is if on these big fires that might cover, you know, multiple districts where you have a couple people doing some monitoring on them, it is going to tell you who edited each individual treatment to help with coordination and collaboration on those bigger fires. This table is also downloadable as an Excel spreadsheet here, you can see. So we also have a status, the status carried over here to the Complete tab. So it'll show you how many treatments you have not started, how many you have in progress, and how many you have completed. In which case here you can see that I've completed the one fire. If I had not completed this treatment, this button would not be available. But because I've got my monitoring complete, I can click this Complete Wildfire Monitoring for Forest Service button. And it's going to tell me that now this fire is complete. So you can see here how the symbology has changed to be the green specks, showing me that the fire is complete. And the importance of this is that this now allows me to go to FTEM reports, which I'll show you here in a little bit, and create a report for this fire. And this fire will be summarized additionally with some of the regional and agency type reports that we have in FTEM reporting right now. With that, I'll pause again for questions.
We've got a couple. Go ahead, Jim.
No, go ahead, Carolyn. You follow, I think, and I'll follow up with you. So you go first.
Well, there's a couple questions in the question box that I was going to let you answer. Jim, I don't know if you can see those from Brenda and from Jason.
I can. So I'll take on some of those and remind me if I miss any for sure. So first of all, this new application, the FTDIS FTM applications for 2018 going forward, all your 2017 information that you've already entered and compiled is being stored in a legacy system. In the future, we hope to migrate all that information over into the new FTDIS application. But at this moment, at this current time, the legacy system, the legacy system will be used as our system of record for all 2017 reporting and earlier. So that information is not lost by any means. That's the most important part. Bree's only demonstrating 2017 right now because that's where we have more fires to look at. But again, going forward, from here forward, 2018 on, FTDIS will be the system of record for all FTM reporting. A question to the group, and this is kind of experimental on my end. Can you raise your hands if you've done FTM reporting in the legacy system? If you can find the hand raising box to do that, it'll give me an idea of the percent of folks on doing that. Another thing is that, Brenda, right now we're not tracking the final treatment metrics that you're asking for, FTI, FTF, and final treatment or maintenance treatments at this time. But I believe that the long report that is generated does have the SUID number, so we can query facts directly and kind of pull that information over and do that analysis. That is a potential enhancement we should definitely consider in the future because I think it'll be very valuable. Our current FS business rules is that basically any wildfire that interacts with a field treatment or the field treatment was helped to mitigate or manage that wildfire needs to be reported into the field treatment effectiveness monitoring database. The current rules is that if for the West, any treatment within the last 10 years, and in the East, any treatment within the last 3 years. Frankie Romero and a few others are considering expanding that to 15 years in the West and 5 years in the East. That'll be part of the next release of the 5140, our official manual. So there'll be more guidance on that coming out going forward on this. a key component here is that for those that have used the old system, and it's been a handful of you that have, this system's more designed to focus on the wildfire as the grouping as opposed to the individual treatments going forward. So it's driven more as containing things by wildfire and then the activities. If you have like a report you've done for a wildfire, like Brenda, you did for the rim fire, or well, you just sent me for the tinder fire, those can be attached to the wildfire component of this. If you have individual photos of different treatments that interacted, you can add that at each individual treatment section going forward. The FACS data coming into this, all the FACS spatial data, which is basically the last roughly 6 years, is updated on a regular basis. All the earlier point data was a one-time download into the application. We try to save it so you only have to report, based on our business rule, the most recent treatment in there. So on that element, so going forward. So you'll see as Bree does our next demonstration, or maybe she goes to a demonstration, you'll see a case where you might have points and not polygons in there. So that'll be, you know, the information's there and it might be stacked, but it might be a point as opposed to a polygon. As you can tell, this application will be limited based on the quality of our FACS data and Irwin data and such. So there will be some limitations there we're going to have to work through. Caroline, did I miss anything on the question?
These guys are hopping. Can we still log into the legacy system?
Yeah, so the legacy system is still available for use. We have not officially shut it down for reporting yet, but as far as getting access to the information in there, it still will be available going forward. And so that is, we're not going to shut that down until we find a permanent home for that data and all the information there in the reports. That's key.
I think we answered Jason's question. I'll come back to it. If we didn't, I need to catch up on the questions. There's a lot.
I have a couple other things I can show here quick while you guys regroup on the questions. But that was, Jim, all of that information was great. I'm glad you covered some more of the intricacies of the data, because that is a huge part of it. So,
Bree, before you begin, let me ask, I'm going to ask one more question with survey. How many of you are familiar with FACS? Can you please raise your hand? So clear your last hand raise and raise your hand if you're familiar with FACS. Okay, Bree, go ahead.
So I just wanted to show, and this kind of goes to some of the policy stuff that Jim may have already mentioned, but I know if he hasn't, he will, is that for Forest Service, it's the most recently completed treatment is what you're supposed to be reporting on. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, when you have some overlapping. So he just mentioned that. You know, we tried to filter the data to the point where you wouldn't have a lot of overlapping. He mentioned how we did some work with the point data to try to, you know, reduce the amount of noise that we had in here with all of the data coming in. And it really, I think, is refined to a pretty nice point, but we know we still have some work to do. And some of that's going to be on your end with work in FACS. But here's an example where we have two treatments that are similar footprints. I mean, one looks like it's a little bit more detailed. This tree release and weed is a little bit more crude of a perimeter, as opposed to this tile burning perimeter is a little bit more refined. You know, this is just an example of where you'll have to look at policy and what you're supposed to be doing and how you report on these. You know, point being is avoiding the double dipping, you know, avoiding reporting on the same piece of ground twice. So Jim, I don't know if you want to piggyback on any of that. I thought this was a good example of where someone might be like, you know, what do I treat on? And I think it's, you know, you've got two different years, 2010 and 2013.
Yeah, so building on that, so a couple of things. So we filtered the FACS data coming into FTDisc, and so we're focusing only on projects that have been funded with WHF funds now, NFHF funds going forward, key point 3, key point 6 projects. This is not meant to evaluate the other resource areas in their programs with that. We also are focusing strictly on the footprint and the history assigned, the activity history assigned for that footprint. So we're relying pretty much on the activity site, if you're familiar with the FACS, or the unique SUID. Occasionally, there's areas where we could not filter for those things. So it's the same geographic location, the same footprint, but it might be showing up twice. And so if that's the case, you should pick the most recent one in the database as your drop down. Luckily for us in the Forest Service, we are able to track those things because we do track the individual footprints. Wherever you're looking at NIF4s, they do not. So we have been able to filter a lot of information to kind of narrow what you can pick to make it easier for your reporting on that. The reporting requirements is 90 days after the fire has been controlled, and that's why there's that control date there. The application, if the control date does not pop up, the application will, in 45 days, if the fire doesn't change perimeter size or doesn't change at all, will give you the ability to report on that fire, because then the control dates are limited to information coming into Irwin as well. There's a lot.
Perfect.
It sounds like, but there really isn't. Trust me, it sounds like a lot, but there really isn't a lot when you get into it. So, hey Bree, can you show a point, fax point, as opposed to a polygon? To show these.
Yeah, I can look for one after that. Yep, after that work we did, that Dwayne did, we did do a great job at minimizing, getting quite a few points. But let me see if I see one here. Here's a couple. Here's a point here.
Great. Just click on that. So if there's not a fax polygon, meaning that it's basically something 6 years or older, right? It'll show up as a point. Sometimes those points are stacked, meaning that you have the same XY for a project area, and there might be multiple unique sewage inside that point. So you would have to count for all those in this. So again, as we get better data, spatial data, this will be easier. But since we do have that 10-year mark, we will have some point data in this process going forward. Just as a heads up there. And this shows the result on that point.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, we removed thousands of points, that we had a lot of redundancy in the points in the polygon. So that was really good. But there still are some out there that will be redundant with each other. So you might have a point where a polygon already exists. Like I said, we tried to remove all of those, but that's where you'll have to really work through refining that treatment list. So I want to go ahead and quick show, actually there was one other thing I wanted to show with the point fires. I don't think I demonstrated how we, I've got some strange highlighting going on my screen here. I want to demonstrate how we buffer if there's not a geomac polygon. We do utilize the acres of the fire to buffer the fire and pull in the treatment to do the detection. So here I've got a 2,000 acre fire. I'm going to zoom into it. You can see the point, and if I zoom out, you can see this turquoise halo around that point, and that's the buffer that the system applied to pull in the treatment. These ones are in particular, you really need to look at refining that treatment list, because this NU Twin #1 fire could have just made a run to the east here, and in which case you would need to remove all of these treatments that it picked, say, in the north and south. So that's just an example of how we do that. For 0.1 acre point fires, it's a tiny little buffer that you can hardly see around the point. So I just wanted to show you guys that. And I also want to show reports. So I think you saw I went into FTEM reports on the navigation bar. Right now we've got 4 different default reports and then a data download. The data download is basically an Excel spreadsheet. So you can pick which agency or all, you get all agencies, and then you can tell the year range. Like Jim said, we're starting with this new system in 2018, but we did include the 2017 fires. And so you'd select your range, and then it would give you an Excel file to download. The agency, region, and state reports really don't, there's not hardly any data, if any, because it's brand new. But those reports will summarize some of the data by agency, region, and state, pretty self-explanatory. The wildfire report, however, is a little bit more fun and interesting right now because it basically creates a report for a completed fire. So I went ahead and built this one, but I selected North Pelican as the one I just did in the demo, and it gives you a report that looks something like this. So you've got some information in the header, and then it gives you a nice map with your treatment or treatments, and then all of the tabular data that you entered on that monitoring tab. This is downloadable as a PDF. You can also download the individual components if you just wanted the map or you just wanted the tables. But the PDF that you get has a nice, intro page and then all of the different information. So I'm not making you dizzy. So I'll pause there again for any questions.
Yeah, there's a few more that I think are for Jim that have to do with the treatments. As specifically, I think treatments that are funded by partners, or asking if this is only for treatments that are funded by HF. So maybe if you could clarify that. There's several questions in here about that. I could read them if that helps.
Yeah, no, I can see them. You don't have to read them. So all the HWF funded projects, HF funded projects are key point 3s. Just to let you know that. Key point 6 are more of the integrated projects and facts. That would cover some of our timber work that also has hazardous fuel reduction objectives as well. So some of the other funded projects, and there's a whole host of fund codes used for those, would count into the system. So they have to have an objective, a fuel hazard reduction objective, which is either key point 3 or key point 6 in facts, for them to make it into here going forward. Right now, BD is not part of that, so we are in the process of trying to have that looked at going forward, because a lot of BD work is actually hazardous fuel reduction, but at this time it is not that. So our goal here is not to evaluate all veg management programs for the Forest Service, but ones that are targeted for hazardous fuel reduction, which is the big question Congress has been asking us in the last several years. Are you making a difference? As far as partner-funded projects, if those partner-funded projects are occurring on Forest Service lands and entered in facts, we are tracking those. But if these are state-assisted funded projects that are occurring outside of Forest Service lands, at this time we are not tracking them in the current legacy system or this new system. And the reason for this is mostly because this goal is to really evaluate our program, so we're trying to get all interactions in here, ones that worked and also the ones more so that did not work, so we can make it better. But it's more difficult to monitor that from the state-assisted funded projects and those things. We're not just here to try to highlight success stories, we're trying to evaluate our program as well. So I think I covered most of these questions that are good questions. And these are also part of, they're probably not really clear in the 5140 guidance, but they are part of the early manual, so something that I think we'll have to make sure we clearly outline going forward. So these are really great questions, especially for a number of you that are new to FTEM reporting. Caroline, did I miss any?
I don't think so, Jim. I'll keep looking.
Yeah, and keep throwing away. Kevin, you sound very busy. It was just really good. I'm expecting high results from you on the Shasta Trinity when you have fires this year. So wildfire ignitions, which is that last question I believe Kevin, you threw out there, is that if it was loaded into facts where you actually claim the acres of that wildfire for resource benefits, which I believe would then qualify as a key point 6, then it should show up in our facts database. We're not tracking all wildfires in past history, only the ones that we are claiming in facts as having provided resource benefits in the application. So we are following our business rules, our reporting business rules for hazardous fuels in this effort. This is piggybacking on our FACTS reporting.
Hey, Jim.
Yeah, that is correct. You will see a lot of actually fires in the system in the treatments list, especially in those more remote areas.
And just to be also clear, technically in the FACTS system, you're only supposed to upload the polygons that you are claiming for resource benefits, not the whole wildfire. Mm-hmm. But in the FACTS system, unfortunately, a lot of people just uploaded the whole wildfire. So it's going to be up to you to, at the local level, to determine which areas you actually claimed for acres and which areas you did not. So that's up to local discretion on that. Susan, if you already entered stuff in 2018 in the legacy system, you do not have to re-enter them here. That is clear. Basically, from this date forward, we are asking people to use the legacy system, to use the FTEM application going forward. But anything entered prior, you do not have to re-enter it here. Once you get it in once, you should be done.
And Bree, there was a question about if there is a fire or a treatment that is just shown as a point and you want to be able to be a little more accurate, can you upload a shape for either that wildfire or that treatment to do a better job of monitoring?
Yeah, you can in FTEM you can upload shape files. Now you can't attach those shape files to an existing treatment or wildfire that came into the system from the system of record. This upload shapefile tool will let you upload a polygon. There have been times, and we've demoed this in the past, where you can pull a perimeter actually off the GeoMac website, where for whatever reason it hasn't come into the system, our system yet, because it does have to meet certain criteria for it to come into the FTEM system. But you could grab that off the GeoMac site and upload it here to overlay to help you refine your treatment list. Now, again, the system is not going to retain that, but you can use it for visual purposes while you're doing your monitoring. With FACTS, if you did, add data or add a shapefile where there wasn't, the system will detect that night and it'll bring it in the next day. Is there anything else floating out there?
So, Bree, do you have anything that you want to demo, or should I answer some more of these questions?
Yeah, no, I'm pretty much done with what I wanted to show. So yeah, I think we're free to. I'll try to, if questions come in, if I can show something with that while you're answering it, I'll try to show it.
Great. So the wildland fire use question, if it's labeled as key point 6 and it's in FACTS, it'll show up here. So that is correct. Kevin, I'm surprised that you're labeling those as key point 0 for this year. As far as I understood, yes, wildfires do not count towards your target at your regional forest level, but they still do count towards a national target. So they should be labeled as key point 6. So you might need to get with your FACTS, your regional FACTS person to get that on the same page. I have not seen change in reporting requirements to make them 0 at a national level. So that might be an interpretation issue that we might need to follow up on to be clear on that. Anything else I'm missing? So Kevin, also your key point 3 question in FACTS and those things. Naturally United Fires is labeled as key point 3. Some of those are, the FACTS reporting is not necessarily perfect by any means, so there is noise in there. So some things are not appropriately assigned to the right key points in those things. But again, the system filters on key point 3 and 6. So if you're not seeing a fire in here or something you've done that's labeled key point 0 that it should be counted, you'll have to go back and modify the spatial FACTS part of the database. So the more recent FACTS data, to get that in there. So sometimes things might not be shown the way you expect. There might be an issue with FACTS. To get it into this application, you would have to go back and clean FACTS first before getting into here.
And we
No,
had,
these are good.
we had a couple questions that I think are pertinent to this from a couple of the other webinars that people have asked that I want to touch on. People have asked if their fire is in the list, but it doesn't have any, it isn't status, like the system didn't detect any interactions. Basically, it's gray. Can I monitor that fire? And the answer is yes. You can select any fire that's in this list, even if doesn't have a status like interactions detected, and add treatments to that fire and monitor it. So that was one. Another one we've had, and I think we've touched on this a little bit in terms of the question about uploading data. You cannot edit the fuel treatment or the wildfire attribute data within the system, again, because that's coming straight from the system of record, FACS or IRWIN. So that data is not editable within FTEM. So we've got about 5 minutes. I don't know if there's additional questions, or if Jim, if you want to give any closing comments or touch on anything that we haven't touched on already.
So I would like to ask another question. I never use this hand raising thing, so it's kind of fun and informative. How many of you would like some sort of a step-by-step PowerPoint you could refer to on how to report into an FTM database? Just raise your hands to get a feel for that. Provide a little bit better guidance. The second thing is, I think these questions are outstanding and will definitely help us kind of come up with a place to provide answers to these questions for future reference. So thank you for actually plugging all these in, and I would encourage you to continue to do so through emails, through the FTEM application, or directly to me. And it seems like definitely about a third of you would like to see some sort of other guides going forward with that, so which is great, which is what we're planning on as well.
Hey, Jim, this is Kim. Just to add to sort of the follow-up part of this is we plan on taking all of the questions you all asked here today, and the ones that we are able to answer, we'll get those written up. The ones that Jim needs to weigh in on, given they're more of a policy question, we'll make sure Jim has those and he can write up an answer to that. And then we have a frequently asked questions section in the help system. So as soon as we get some time, we'll compile all of these and they will be added to that FAQ section within the help. So we can, when all the webinars are done, we have one more webinar to do for the BIA this afternoon. Once they're all done, we'll be sending out an email to everybody for two things. One, you'll be able to have a link to the recording for this webinar, and then also some follow-up to these questions, and then some pointers to get you to the online help system as well. So kind of a couple things coming in that email following these webinars. And also just to reiterate, any of the button clicking questions that you folks might have as far as just navigating through the system and how the system works, you can definitely direct those to us, to the FTEM and FTDIS team, and you can do that through our online help forums or through the ticket system if you have a real problem. Anything policy related, though, just like we did today with Jim answering those, all the policy and reporting types of questions will need to go through Jim. So just to kind of clarify kind of the difference there.
Yeah, and I had promised I would show the help center, so I'm showing it as Kim was talking, because there are a lot of resources there to use with some different kind of walkthroughs to help you walk through some of these things again. Each tab, we talk about each tab and what to do on each tab. It's got frequently asked questions and everything that Kim just talked about. We still have a few things that we're working on with the help, but there's a lot of good information there for you. And just like with IFTDIS, like Kim said, submit a ticket if there's something's not working right or you're having problems with your account or something like that. We get those instantly, so we'll work as quick as we can to help you out if we can. So and if it ends up being, if you submit more of like a policy type question, we'll divert that to the right person. So definitely utilize our help center and definitely let us know what you think. So, and I did find, I knew that there was one of these examples in the area, but I found an example of where a wildfire natural ignition treatment type was entered into the system or came into the system through fax, and this Pole Creek fire. And you can see they did what Jim had said they should do, which is, you know, you're not putting the full perimeter in, but the areas where there was resource benefit. So here's an example of that, where we do bring those in. So with that.
Hey Bree, one more good question, I think, here from Heather about a fire that intersects a treatment from multiple agencies and how to deal with, you know, her question was, will there be one report to show the full picture, or will each agency report on that?
No, that's a good question. So we do, the system does have the capacity to deal with fires that interact with treatments from multiple agencies. So that's where, if you do have responsibility for more than one, we can give you that. But if you're monitoring a fire that impacted your Forest Service treatments, but it also impacted Park Service treatments, you will see the Park Service treatments on the map and in the report table once the Park Service has completed the monitoring for their fire. So that's the key, is that you're not going to see it. If you finish your Forest Service reporting and you pull a wildfire report and the Park Service hasn't completed their monitoring for that fire, you're still only going to see your stuff. But once they complete theirs, you will see theirs in the report. Now on the map, you are only seeing Forest Service treatments, but you can utilize, I'm going to close this, you can utilize the reference data. And I didn't cover the different widgets that we have, but there's this add layers widget. And if you pop that open, you'll see that we have these FTEM treatment points and polys layers. And you can add, this is the same feed that we get every night, so it's updated nightly, and you could add the Park Service points and polygons in the example that I gave to see those on the map at least. But again, once the Park Service would complete their monitoring for that same fire, all of it's combined in the wildfire report. Hopefully that answers that question.
And Bree, one more thing for me before we just completely hang up. First of all, again, one more survey question is that how many of you know who your regional FTM contact is? Just raise your hand on that. And then answering the final reports. If you have a written report, outcome report for your wildfire and field treatment interactions, please upload them to here, as well as, you know, make them available to us as well. We are hoping to use this as our system of record for capturing all reports about the wildfire. So if it's FTM related and you have a report written about it or something, please upload it to here. So, and that's all I have for now, except for, yeah, it's interesting to me. Only a few of you actually know who your regional contacts are, which is good to know that. So thanks. 90 days, Neil. From basically 90 days after the fire is declared controlled, you have to complete your reporting.
Okay. Do we have any other last-minute lingering questions? If not, I think we can call it good. And yeah, thanks, Jim, for jumping on. And we'll make this recording available to folks. And we'll send that along to you, Jim, to distribute. So there's nothing else. I think we're gonna,
No, this is Kim. I was just saying, look for an email in the next day or so, and that recording link, feel free to, you know, share that with any colleagues you have that may have missed this presentation and want to take a look. And like I said, we'll include some answers to some of these questions you all brought up as well in that same email.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Jim. Bye-bye.